Hi everyone, my name is Junon. I have a health science background and I'm the author of the book Truth and Empathy, How to Find Your Soulmate. And I'll put a link to the book below. This video is the MBTI personality type assessment of Buddha. Again, when it comes to 16 MBTI personality types, they can be grouped into four main ones. The first one are sensor judgers, the second sensor perceivers, the third intuitive thinkers, and the last one intuitive feelers. To me, Buddha was an intuitive feeler, and I will explain why. Again, I have some notes on screen so I don't miss anything. Buddha was born around 480 BC as Prince Siddhartha Gautama in modern-day Nepal. His father was a powerful ruler of a Hindu republic. There was a prophecy that Siddhartha would become either a religious leader or a powerful king. And to ensure that his son would succeed him on the throne, his father hid all human suffering from Siddhartha. So he had a life of luxury, and up to his late 20s, everything was fine. He even got married and had a beautiful son. But yet, Siddhartha felt that a deep sense of dissatisfaction, even though he was living a beautiful life. So at the age of 29, he ventured outside the palace and had three encounters. The first one was with an old person, the second with a sick person, and the last one was with a corpse. And that's when he experienced an existential crisis. So he decided to leave his pampered life to find the answer to life's suffering. He spent the next 6 years learning from India's most prominent yoga and meditation masters. He even joined a group of hermits who practiced extreme fasting and intense meditation, but he only became extremely emaciated when he was no closer to become enlightened. He had the insight that enlightenment is about balance in life. So, in other words, it is a midway between living a life of luxury and deprivation, or what we call the middle way. Siddhartha ate and sat under a Bodhi tree and meditated until he became enlightened or reached nirvana. He realized that we suffer because we want the world and people to be a certain way. Also, impermanence is at the root of human suffering because nothing is permanent, so eventually we will lose whatever we had. After he became enlightened, Buddha was filled with joy and compassion with everything on earth. He provided a guide for people to follow if they wanted to become enlightened. It was called the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. The first one is life is suffering, or dukkha. The second is suffering is caused by desire. The third is that there's an end to suffering. The fourth is the eightfold path that leads to the end of suffering, which is right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. People can still function in the world and follow Buddhist principles. Other core beliefs are karma, which is an ancient Sanskrit word that means action. So actions have consequences, and it has to do with natural law. So it's not about punishment. And also, the intention really matters. So it's not so much what a person does, but what their intention behind that action. Buddhists believe we live in an endless cycle of birth, suffering, death, and rebirth, or samsara. The only way to escape is to stop desiring, to stop suffering, and to stop the creation of karma and reach enlightenment, or nirvana. Nirvana means blow out, or to blow out the fire of desire. Buddha lived to be around 80 years old and spent the remaining 45 years of his life traveling the Indian subcontinent, teaching others how to reach enlightenment. What is interesting with Buddha is that he was born into a rich family. and he was given all life's pleasures and luxuries and comforts, but still he was not satisfied. And that's very typical of someone who is an intuitive. So the five senses, yes, it can bring you temporary pleasure, but it doesn't give you peace of mind. And with someone like Buddha, is that he knew there was something beyond the five senses. So that definitely points to someone who's more of an intuitive than a sensor. The other point is that Buddha comes across as a very compassionate person. So when he encountered a person who was old, a person who was sick, and a corpse, you could tell that it really moved him. So just the fact that he wanted to sort of gain a better understanding of life, he wanted to go beyond the five senses. You can tell that the theme of his life was meaning and spirituality. So he was searching for something deeper. And that is typical of someone who's an intuitive feeler. So all intuitive feelers tend to be very compassionate, very loving, and they naturally gravitate towards spirituality and not religion, because when you actually later on you discover more about Buddhism, is that you can tell that it's not about sort of being very strict. It has to do with getting to the essence of a problem, or in this case, life's suffering. The other aspect is whether Buddha was a judger or a perceiver. And I would really lean more towards someone who's a judger, because when he decided to sit under the Bodhi tree to meditate until he reached enlightenment, I mean, you really have to be focused. This is not like someone who sat there for a couple of minutes. This is someone who was determined to get to the truth. And for someone to actually have that fixity of like, mind, this is very much in line with someone who's a judger, who's like very structured, very disciplined. And the other aspect also is that he is someone who's able to organize others, because he has created a new religion. So he had to be someone who knew how to engage others, plan, and make sure that his teaching are passed to his disciples. So he had to be someone who wanted something that is well organized to get there. So that's why, it's been like 2,500 years ago, and we still have like 7% of the world population who are Buddhists, because of how well organized Buddha was when he was alive. The other aspect is whether Buddha was an introvert or extrovert. I would say that he clearly comes across more as an introvert, because first of all, let's say if he's an introvert, is that he's probably an INFJ, is that the INFJ is the most intuitive of all the personality types. And when you talk about enlightenment, is that there are different levels. And let's say I would really encourage people to read the work by Dr. David R. Hawkins, is that when a person reaches enlightenment, is that they go through different stages. There are, I would say, that as many levels to enlightenment as there are like lower levels of awareness. So Buddha, to have reached that level, which is equal to Jesus Christ, is that he had to be the most intuitive of all the intuitives, which is the INFJ. The other point also is that the INFJ is committed first and foremost to absolute truth. So if you look at the functions, that the first function is introvert intuition. That's why Buddha was willing to leave everything behind, even his wife and his young son. You will not see that with someone, let's say, who's an ENFJ, because their first function is extroverted feeling, and they would feel too guilty, like they want more harmony than absolute truth. So if you look at the life of Buddha, is that he was literally willing to leave everything behind and to get to the ultimate. So in other words, to become enlightened like an INFJ, you have to be willing to sacrifice pretty much everything for truth. Some people even have said that Buddha had paranormal abilities such as healing, and even in terms of being able to duplicate himself. So these are the things that you will see a lot with enlightened people or saints, where they are able to heal others and have all these sort of unusual abilities. So for all these reasons, I would say that Buddha was most likely an INFJ. So again, it has to do with the fact that the theme of his life clearly was meaning and spirituality, because he wanted to help others. So there's a lot of compassion in him, and you'll see that a lot with the people who are intuitive feelers. But although he was intuitive feeler, he was also very much organized to be able to create a new religion that lasted for all these years, to be able to really energize others, to be able to continue the tradition. The other point also is that he's someone who's an introvert, so he gets energized by being alone. But the other aspect is very important, is that as an INFJ, they are the most intuitive of all the personality types. So that's why he was able to get to the heart of what it is to be enlightened and actually pass down to the others. According to the spiritual teacher David R. Hawkins, Buddha taught the path to enlightenment, and Jesus Christ taught the path to salvation, but both were at the same level of awareness. So that's why I type Jesus Christ as an INFJ and Buddha as well. Although there are differences in terms of they're from a different culture, different time in history, but they both were at the same level of enlightenment. So I trust that this information was interesting. Maybe you learned something. If you enjoyed this video, please click on the like button, subscribe to my channel, and we will talk soon.